Hello, everyone. I'm Clarence Anthony, CEO and Executive Director of the National League of Cities. Welcome to another episode of Cities Speak. Today, I am talking with two local leaders who are deeply committed to their communities. They may hail from opposite ends of the country, but because of their connections fostered by the National League of Cities, they are now collaborating and learning from each other every day so that they can make their communities better, or I would say a better place to live, work, and play. So why I'm excited about this session is because in today's environment, we often hear about the negative stories or the challenges that our political leaders are having with each other, whether it's at the federal level, the state level. But being a local guy, I can tell you our city officials know how to be role models as it relates to engagement, civility, and connection. Today, I'm excited to have two guests who really has gotten to know each other through working in their communities, but mostly because of the National League of Cities and the connection they have had in being involved. I'm excited to have Councilmember Taneea Browning, who's joining us. Councilman Browning, Taneea is a council member from Central Point, Oregon. Population about 19,200 and a past president of the League of Oregon Cities. We're also thrilled to have Councilmember John Stehle with us. John is with the city of Fairfax, Virginia, population of 24,000, almost 25,000 residents. And as I said, is a past president of the Virginia Municipal League. So, Taneea, John, welcome to City Speak. How are you guys doing?
This is great. Love it.
Excited to see you all today.
Well, excellent. So I want to make you feel comfortable. I have a listenership of about 1 million people. No, just joking. But it is important to us that we get leaders on here that our members would be interested in hearing from. And clearly, you guys have done something that we really are proud of as the National League of Cities. One of the things that NLC is best known for is our federal advocacy work. But I tell people all the time that our ability to bring leaders together, to share ideas, to learn from each other is our superpower. So, Taneea, let me start with you. Tell me how you and John have partnered as it relates to Fairfax and him being way in Virginia and you being in Oregon. How has that worked?
Well, it's amazing, and it really does speak volumes to the connections made at the NLC and the events that you guys really present to your members. And so we have met at the presidential fly-in, and we were, listening, doing all the things we're supposed to be as leaders, and we, hit it off. He recognized that I was from Oregon. He's a Ducks fan. And we talked a little bit about that, and then, kind of naturally went into what are the things you're doing and interested in your non-volunteer advocacy stuff. And so we talked about our day-to-day life, and I was opening a makerspace. It had been 2 years. And so we have a 20,000 square foot makerspace that specializes in workforce development, experiential learning for students. It's open to the community. So it's really a showcasing of maximizing tax dollar investments when you look at it from a school perspective. And then additionally, those dollars spent on the state's investment for the career technical education. So there was a lot of overlap in our passions, obviously serving our community as an elected official, and then wanting to continue to serve what we do in our day-to-day lives. And so it was great to talk about what he was wanting to do in his space, what we had done. And, people will sometimes say, oh, well, you guys can learn best practices. But, best practices are kind of like, meh, not really the best practices. They're usually the practices of least resistance. And so what I like to focus on is lessons learned, right? what can I share with someone that was a great lesson learned, but maybe a different avenue for them. So that's been great with what we're doing over here in Oregon, and then what John was doing. So that's kind of how we got the ball started at our first meeting. And then I don't want to hog too much of the time and tell the whole story. I will share the mic and let you ask your next question before I just keep talking.
Well, John, talk to us about your perspective on how, being at a convening, being at conferences, being at workshops at the National League of Cities, and this ability to learn and share with another municipal official from the other side of the country.
I think it's one of the key elements of what National League of Cities does so well. And for anyone listening to this who's going to go to Tampa, a couple of thoughts to think about. Number one, you're self-selecting a group of amazing human beings. They're elected leaders who are giving their time. They're committing to be present in a room. You can't find that anywhere else, right? It's great when we get our municipal leagues together, association of counties, the groups wandering around. But this is such a diversity of thought and a group of people who want to make the trek across the U.S., in Tanea's case, to come and sit in a room. And so take advantage of being present in that moment. And that's really the relationship that we started. I've been a Ducks fan my entire life. I'm from Western Pennsylvania. I grew up a Penn State fan. I remember them in the Rose Bowl. And so I couldn't help myself to say, hey, you're from Oregon. Tell me more. And that little opening has resulted now in almost, I think we're on year 7 or 8 of talking to each other, in this particular space. And so it's a great thread that continues through to really listen to what Taneea talked about. It's not about being the smartest academic of what the leading practices are in a book. It's about what can I take back to my city, my council members, and say, I learned this new idea. Let's try something here. Or to really not feel alone. And that's really one of the biggest values that I think I've gotten from my ability to pick up the phone and call Taneea. She's an elected leader going through many of the same things that I'm going through. But she doesn't care which school is mad at which person or what community is talking about what development. She can just give me advice as a human who's in a similar space. And that connectivity, as you mentioned earlier, in particular in today's day and age, is so important because you don't want to feel alone. You're not by yourself. There's a network of people who believe in what we are doing. And all you have to do is create that little time and investment to exchange cell phone numbers or say hello or text each other or find those moments. And then what unlocks, as we talk about here, are really good ideas of actually sharing lessons learned and building things together.
And a diverse perspective too. I really think that that's key, John. You touched on that. It's not a guarantee that we all view things the same way, but we all come together and we have the mindset of we want to learn something new. We don't, care who's telling us this information. We want to work together. And I think modeling that is something that you don't get an opportunity to do sometimes locally, but when you're on that national scene, you have such a diverse perspective that you can practice having those conversations that aren't always easy in a safe environment.
Yeah, I oftentimes, you talk about best practices. I oftentimes say next practices because we want to be ahead of what's coming. And when you're at the National League of Cities, that's just a real opportunity to hear from others that have already gone down that road can tell you, don't do that, or, yeah, you should do this. I also can tell you that as a former mayor, what I used to do is go to the National League of Cities and get ideas and come back and bring it back and sort of say, I was thinking, I came up with this idea. I may have forgotten, Taneea, that you told me the idea, John, sort of forgotten, but sort of rebranded, but come up with the same ideas. But it has to fit your community because it may work in one city and may not. And that's what I love about one size does not fit all. But let me ask you this other question. I remember coming to the National League of Cities, and of course, I've gone to Florida League, but then I walked into this big room, this big space, all these people. What advice would you give a first time attendee? Because if I come from a city of 25,000 and 19,000, and there seems to be, mayors from all over the country, council members from all over the country, it can be overwhelming. So, what's the first step when you walk in?
Well, for me, it goes back to Taneea and I's first meeting. Take advantage of getting to know someone and commit to knowing them over time. I've been introduced to more people in the Pacific Northwest because I've got to hang out with Taneea and go to their reception, right? And she's got to meet a ton of people in Virginia. When they're here, it's inviting, it's extending that outreach, it's building that network that are in there. So find someone's coattails and ride them, right? Find someone who knows people now. There's a network of people who've been doing this a while. Get tapped in and then commit to build your own next network, right? Alternatively, just walk up and say hi to somebody. That group right there is a lot of people who know how to shake hands. It's how they got to their position. So they're waiting for it. They're self-selected to be there. And that combination of finding a group and getting to build off that group creates that memory, that opportunity to work together. And Taneea, I've enjoyed meeting your network of people, hands down every time we're together.
Yeah, I agree. It's really taking that risk. It doesn't have to be. We're all kind of awkward. I'll speak for myself. I'm awkward. I'll come up. I don't mind. And it kind of it lowers those walls. Immediately when you find someone, you're just like, hey, great shoes. Like, and that starts the conversation. And I think that vulnerability also speaks to that willingness to listen to someone's perspective.
Today, I want you to share a little bit. I did some background reading on Central Point, and you created this program that was a public space for students and community leaders to learn carpentry, culinary arts, which I love, computer design. I mean, talk a little bit about that, because one of the reasons I was so interested in having you guys, because I want you to show example about how you shared and where it went from there. So hopefully there's some municipal leaders who will be listening to this and say, I love that idea that Taneea shared. So talk to us about the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's pretty awesome. In that CreatorWorks Makerspace is a 20,000 square foot makerspace, and it is technically an LLC where one partner is a public school district and the other partner is a 501c3 organization. So that had never been done before in the state of Oregon, where an LLC's partnership comprised of the nonprofit and the public entity. So right there, right, it's kind of breaking the mold. We knew what we wanted to do for our community. We wanted to bring in career technical education, design think for the students, allowing for mentors to come in with those students, giving public access during time when the school was closed so that you could have that maximum use of the investment by those tax dollars, show that you can work together, and that we can do tough things. It wasn't easy, right? It had been the first time that it had been done. There were lots of conversations to be had, multiple perspectives to be considered. How are we going to have access? How are we also at the same time going to keep students safe and align what we were doing with the state standards in those curriculums? So there's multifaceted, tons of overlap, wanting to get multiple different perspectives in there, and it took a long time. And so I think that willingness to be on that cutting edge of innovation, right? Where you're testing things out. Will this work? How will this work? And not always knowing the answers. Like being vulnerable in that as an elected official is, I don't have to have all the answers. John, I think, mentioned that. You get to surround yourself by incredibly talented other humans that you use as this brain trust of resources. And so that's really what CreatorWorks is. And so what we try and do is help other communities navigate the different opportunities that they have. How do they maximize their community assets, whether that's social capital, financial capital, whatever it is, and just kind of those lessons learned and areas to look to. And so that's really kind of where John and I, got started. And he was, I think, already at the college and starting his makerspace in that space. And it's just been super exciting because you have someone to throw ideas at that's in the same space that you are, with that troubleshooting, steel sharpens steel. And so it really is helpful to have someone that understands the goal and some of those constraints to help you to troubleshoot kind of where the next action might be. So I kind of consider myself a policy artist in that I look at policies and I find, okay, well, where are the gaps? Where are the things that need to be connected, and how do I connect those? And so really being at the center of the social capital investment movement in our community. How do we invest time to increase the social capital for all of our citizens, students, adults, our, older communities, whatever that is. So I hope that answered your question on kind of what the Crazy Crater Works plan is.
Yeah, it does, and don't apologize for being you didn't want to use this word, a policy geek. I am one. We could have a great dinner, talking about life and policy and how change can happen through dreams, and I'm very proud of that. So, John, you guys talked. So you guys started doing the same thing in Fairfield. So, how did it work for you? Was there a difference in the makerspace that you wanted to create?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, as soon as Taneea started talking about where they were at, I knew we could do it too. And that shot of positive energy when you're working through the day to day of, do you have enough votes to get it in? Can the building in there? Do they have the right permit? All those minutia elements. Just knowing that you're not the first is so energizing, because Taneea had it figured out, and to have that ability to pick up the phone and go, all right, here's the roadblock I'm on. She was able to say, okay, well, here was my similar experience, or hey, keep your head up. In 3 years, look where you might be, right? And that just positive energy flow is there. And what's exciting about our journey is we're just getting going on the apprenticeship side, right? We're just starting to think about certified pre-apprenticeship programs. How do we tap into the middle school, which, by the way, in the city of Fairfax's case, is literally across the street, right? And so to be able to tell Taneea that I don't have to worry about transportation because I got those students, 7th and 8th graders, can walk. She's like, this is amazing. How cool is that, right? And so it gives her energy to think about what she's inspiring somewhere else. And that whole idea of coming together and saying, well, how did you lay out this program out? Or what funding did you apply for? Ooh, you were that LLC with this and this. We can't do it quite that way here. What do you think about this? That's where Tanea's superpower of a policy artist comes in, because I can throw anything at her and she's a yes and, right? She'd be like, yes, I hear you. And here's what I think about this thing. Tell me the next thing. And finding a partner, and just so everyone knows, Taneea and I's conversations generally are about 7.5 minutes long, right? They're high intensity, they're quick, and we move on to the next thing. And that's the type of relationship that works well for us because we're super busy, right? And knowing we're going to see each other and say hello and share information, like that just creates that energy for each other. So she's been that kind of Sherpa for us of what's the next thing I need to think about, how to be in the journey. But that vision of we can get there too was incredibly helpful to slog through it.
Man, I love that approach too, because I am that person that I want to have 7 minute snitches of information. My team often say that I need background, so they usually start when I was born, and then they have to come all the way to 2024, and by that time, I'm done. I'm just done. So I appreciate getting to it, outlining the issue, and giving some solutions. I mean, that's wonderful. Now, as I was thinking, and again about where and how you can continue to improve your communities, I heard that you guys are thinking about bringing home a gold medal to your communities by getting a group to go to LA 28 Summer Olympics. Now, I got big visions in life, but this kind of got me thinking a little bit. What are y'all trying to do here? What's the goal?
Well, so Clarence, this is another one of those things where at National League of Cities and events, good things happen, right? So we ran into the Aspen Institute and USA Lacrosse, and USA Lacrosse has a goal of doubling the number of kids playing lacrosse by the Olympics in 2028. It's called Elevate 28. And because Taneea and I are big picture people, I went to Taneea and I said, hey, how can we help them? how can we help them connect? How can we help drive that idea forward? And we got to talking about what we're doing with lacrosse here in Northern Virginia, which is a hotbed of it. We found some USA Lacrosse people. Turns out they got some focus in Oregon as well. And because of the relationship that started with National League of City at the President's Fly-In, because we got to work together on the makerspace, it was an easy phone call to make because we already knew each other. We knew how to communicate. And I say, I got an idea for you. And I just wrote an article in the VML magazine about what we're working on and sort of a framework to build forward. And now I can be that person, just like Taneea was for me, driving lacrosse growth in this area. And I can look to Oregon as that support.
Yeah. And I mean, the crossover, some might think, well, that's weird. Like you got municipal government and then you've got this makerspace, and I kind of see the connection, and then lacrosse is good. What? Like, how does that happen? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But when you look at, and both John and I do this, right? When we're looking at what it is in our community that needs to have some support. It's the connection, it's the communication, it's the mentorship. It's, when we're talking about workforce development, we're talking about the social capital investments. Those are skills that humans learn through interactions. And I don't love this phrase, but I do love this phrase. I'm not going to lie. I trick people, right? I trick people into learning things. I do that at the Makerspace or at our Natural Resource Center. They think they're going to come and learn how to weave a basket or something, and then surprise, I'm going to teach them all about native plants. Same thing, right? So in lacrosse, you're learning a sport, you're being competitive, but you're also at the same time learning communication, learning how to take critical feedback, being part of a team. All of those skills that we so value and so need in our community when it comes to leadership in politics and when it comes to workforce development. So while it may not initially seem like there's a lot of overlap, it's the same thing we want. The outcome is the same, is that human experience, the connected community, and that ability to look at diverse perspectives with humans in space. And so I think that's where John and I connected, is like, we don't really care what the project is that we're working on, because the end goal is to help our communities and help other communities find out creative ways to trick people into doing the things they may not initially want to do, but when they start doing it, they absolutely love it and they feel good about themselves, they feel good about their community, and they want that to spread. And so I think that is what is weaving us together, and we would not have found that if we would not have met at the presidential fly-in. And so that's kind of setting that table, creating that container that the NLC is doing for elected officials across the nation.
All right. So my final question is this. I heard that there exists the greatest city in the world. And I wonder, which city in the world do you think is the best or greatest city ever? Taneea?
I would say it would be the community that you are in. It should be. Because if you don't love your community, you should work harder at loving it or move. Those are, so I mean, I think everyone has the opportunity to, and I want everyone to feel that their community is the best. I feel like mine's the absolute best for me, and I'm sure John feels that his is the best. Clarence, hopefully you love yours as well.
I do.
Well, and I think, Clarence, this is why I love working with Taneea, right? Because that conversation right there is exactly why we're working together, right? It is time for all of us to roll up our sleeves, right, at the local level, take a breath and lean in, right? Because we have a lot of things to address, but there is positive opportunity everywhere, right? And we need more leaders at the local level leaning in and saying, let's attack this problem, right? Let's really roll up our sleeves and think about how we move from A to B in this particular area. Let's bring partnerships on. Let's talk about it. Let's be vulnerable, as Taneea said, right? Be open to the idea and the possibility that exists, because that's how we're going to make it better for our kids. That's how we're going to make it better for the next generation. That's how we're going to open the door for more people to feel welcome at the table. And we're going to, and as Taneea knows, and I know as well, sometimes just opening the door isn't enough. We're going to hold their hand, we're going to bring them to the table, and we're going to hand them the microphone, and we're going to make sure that they have a voice. And that's really what she has done so well. And I've been awesome to get to work with her on it and steal some of those ideas back here to the city of Fairfax and vice versa to be that energy space.
Well, I've met two leaders today that really love their community and live in the greatest cities in the world, not just in America. You notice that I used the world, right? Let me thank both of you and just say this. You guys really do exemplify what NLC was founded for. 100 years ago, it was founded because it wanted to bring people from all over America together to share best practices, to learn about policy issues, federal advocacy issues, to really network and to grow so that they'll be more prepared and better as public officials when they returned back home. So I am so honored to have had this conversation with you all. And I'm just going to ask you one more time. Do you guys know what organization is turning 100 years old this year?
That National League of Cities place.
And there's a huge party.
That's right.
We're going to be there.
In Tampa, Florida. If you have not registered thus far, I have to put my plug in. My team tells me to do that. Please find an opportunity to register and come in to Tampa, because you will, in fact, learn. You will get value. And I want to thank you guys both for taking your time out to talk to me, because this really is about local leadership. We make the difference. We're the ones that really can change the conversations and the civility level in our communities and in the nation. So again, thank you for joining City Speak with Clarence Anthony, and I thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to City Speak with Clarence Anthony. If you like this show, let us know. Share this episode with your friends and make sure to subscribe. We're curious to hear what you think, what you want more of, and how we can improve. If you have feedback or an idea for a guest you'd like Clarence to sit down with, send us your thoughts at cityspeakpodcast@nlc.org. Join us next month for a new episode. Like and subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.